But
No, not yet.
Lauren, you're covering Ryan's item.
No, he should be logging on.
He was logged on at one point.
I mean, I can if I need be, but
Okay.
he's working from home, so.
You are live, Chair.
okay. So we are ready to go. I'd like to welcome you to the August 17th Planning Commission meeting and like to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. I'd like to introduce our recording secretary, Ms. Nylander. Prior to roll call, the city attorney would like to make an announcement to the Planning Commission regarding the teleconferencing of this meeting. So we are turning this over to Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Alicia Poon.
Thank you, Chair Kuznick. Prior to roll call, I would like to make clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes, that the governor has issued executive orders relaxing the requirements pertaining to remote meetings under the Brown Act. The executive orders authorize the Planning Commission, or this Planning Commission, to hold public meetings by teleconference during the COVID-19 crisis. I previously went over the specific provisions of the Brown Act that have been temporarily amended or suspended in order to allow for this meeting to take place by teleconference. And this meeting will comply with all such provisions. Madam Recording Secretary, it would now be appropriate for you to conduct roll call, after which I would ask the chair to recognize me in order to confirm certain matters for the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. All right, roll call. Commissioner Edwards.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Marks. Commissioner Wallace.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Alpert.
Present.
And Chair Kuznick.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poon. You may now proceed with confirming matters for the record.
Thank you again, Chair Kuznick. I would now like to ask the chair, the vice chair, and the other commission members 3 questions. Rather than ask you to respond separately to these questions, I'll ask all 3, and if the answer is yes to all 3, please say yes and physically raise your hand. Question number 1, can you hear me well? Question number 2, have you been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call, clearly? And question 3, are you satisfied, based on facial or voice recognition or otherwise, that everyone here representing themselves to be a commission member is actually the person they are representing themselves to be? I'm looking for hands and yeses, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Here, or Commissioner Wallace, you're muted.
I didn't think you wanted to hear me talk anymore. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Seeing all hands raised, and the record should reflect that I've received affirmative answers from each commission member present to all 3 questions, that all commission members have indicated that they are able to hear each other and these proceedings clearly. And no commission member has expressed doubt that each and every commission member participating by teleconference is in fact the commission member they are representing themselves to be. And finally, I would now like to advise the chair and the commission members and the recording secretary that any votes taken during the teleconference portion of this meeting must be taken by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we move to item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Can we now move to item 4, public comment or written communications? So Jennifer, do we have any items or information on public comment for this portion?
We do not have any written communication for item 4. So what I will do is I'll just go ahead and give a little overview of how you can speak during public comment if you'd like to make a comment on items not on the agenda for tonight. So you may press the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when we are taking public comment. And at this time, it would be appropriate for the public to address the Planning Commission on any item not included in tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much. As far as I know, we have no written communication. And at this point, I do not see any hands being raised. So I will close public comment on items that are not part of the agenda. All right, so thank you very much. All right, very good. We will go on to the next item in our agenda. Item 5. Okay, revisions and additions. We have no items. Item 6, consent calendar. We have the Housing Advisory Committee appointment recommendations. So at this time, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar item to recommend the appointment of 3 Housing Advisory Committee members for the 3 full-term vacancies running through July of 2023 to the City Council?
I'll move approval of item 6.1, the Housing Advisory Committee appointment recommendations.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Was that Wallace or Edwards? I think I got both of you.
Let's
Either
say
way,
Wallace.
it's fine.
Okay, we'll take Wallace. Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. We had mover, Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
Seconder was Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
We have Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
and Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. So that passes. Item 7, approval of the minutes. Item 7.1, minutes from the July 20th, 2021 regular Planning Commission meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to our minutes from the last meeting?
Madam Chair, I just had a minor correction I shared with Jen earlier. We actually started our meeting at 7 p.m., not at 7 a.m. last time, but other than that.
Thank you for
I think
that correction.
I think we can make that adjustment to the minutes. Is there anything else in the minutes? Very good. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as noted with the time correction?
Madam Chair, I will move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have mover Commissioner Marks,
Aye.
seconder Commissioner Wallace,
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards,
Aye.
Vice Chair Alpert,
Aye.
and Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Thank you. So those are approved as amended.
Thank you very much. Excellent. All right, item 8, continued items after closing a public hearing. There are none. Item 9, continued items. So we are moving to item 9.1, the continued public hearing on City Village. And we have a staff report by Ms. Yee, Senior Planner. Cindy.
Thank you. Good evening. Just a very quick staff report. The Planning Commission last reviewed the application for the City Village project on July 6th. And at that meeting, after providing public comment and questions to the applicant and staff, continued the item to tonight, August 17th. And staff is currently working on completing the environmental analysis for the project. And so we are recommending that the meeting this evening be continued to September 7th to allow staff some additional time to complete that work. And we will be back on September 7th with a additional report on your 3rd public hearing.
So thank you. So a point of clarification, as we are continuing then, do we still provide open public comments?
Yes, you can still take public comment if there's anyone in the audience wishing to comment this time. So we can open the public hearing and reach out to see. And if no one, we can close the public hearing. They'll ask for a motion to continue to date certain.
Okay. I see 2 hands that have popped up. So I will open the public comment on the City Village proposal. So
All right. Okay, so yes, it does look like we have 2 so far. Just as a reminder for anyone who needs a refresher, you can press the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone if you would like to speak on this item, item 9.1. So I'll go ahead and start with Joyce. It looks like she's our first speaker. And we'll go ahead and you'll be allotted 3 minutes to speak. All right, Joyce, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening. Joyce Carr, resident of San Ramon. I have a concern that I would like to bring up this evening. Even though Bishop Ranch 6 is infill for East Bay mud, our water crisis definitely needs to be addressed and considered in discussing this project. Again, we face a very serious water crisis with no end in sight. Snowpacks are going down. Also, reservoir and streams levels continue to go down with no end in sight. And how about the water needed to fight these fires taking place here in California? It seems like these plans for these homes are discussed as if we have all the water we need. These developments will not solve our water shortages, and yet as the problem will only get worse. Residents have already been asked and ordered to cut down on water use, and we will be asked to cut down even more for these new developments, I am sure. I was wondering if there is anyone that is looking at this water issue. If the city staff does not focus on the water shortage now, we're going to face a huge problem down the road. Please don't ignore this water shortage and crisis. Please open your eyes to the reality of a water shortage and crisis. Denial of ignoring it is not an option. My comments tonight for 9.1 also apply to item 10.2, the Deerwood townhomes. So I'm speaking tonight right now for both of those items. Thank you, Joyce Carr.
Thanks, Joyce.
Welcome.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Jim Blickenstaff. Whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Great. I just wanted to touch bases with the commissioners on the process here, because sometimes I think certain important effects of a project get kind of put to the side or aren't prioritized. And of course, that brings me back to one of my favorite themes, parks. I think you got to be careful about depleting the number of parks you're putting in for new development. I think those standards in the general plan are there for a purpose and they ought to be honored. Right now, I've seen numerous times when we pull back from the amount of parks we need when we put in new development. And that's a quality of life issue that we should be very sensitive to. It's coming up now with Bishop Ranch 6, which is just proceeding in a similar way to other projects where there's maybe a neighborhood park that satisfies the needs of that immediate neighborhood. And that's a minimalist kind of approach that even a developer would say we need that. But I'd say, broadly speaking, in terms of the betterment for the community and maintaining our quality of life, we should look at maintaining that 6.5 acres per 1,000. Knocking that down to 5 or whatever is just another way of saying we're decreasing our quality of life. One of the major aspects of it is green space. And with new housing, the green space, the front and backyard goes down even more. So you really do need that outlet for parks more than maybe the way the houses were built 20 or 30 years ago. So we have to be extra careful about shortchanging the need for parks. And that's just an example of maybe not paying attention to the effects of a project in terms of other issues that impact the community and have the threat of degrading our quality of life. That should be a top priority for the staff and the Planning Commission. And I hope they pay attention to that, not just parks, but perhaps parking demand and perhaps traffic demand that's going to increase, and just the basic school demands, just the basics that we have to pay attention to. I think that should be on the top of the priority list when you're looking at new developments. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jim. All right, it looks like that completed all of our public commenters. I don't see any other hands raised.
I will concur with you. And at this point, I will close the public comment on this item 9.1 and ask if there is a motion to continue this to the September 7th Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
I would move that we continue the hearing on item 9.1 to our next meeting on September 7th, 2021.
Madam Chair, I will second.
All right, thank you. All right, so a quick roll call vote. We had mover, Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
Seconder, Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
And Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
All right, item 9.1 is continued to the September 7th Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move on to item 10.1, the Sandbox virtual reality, and we have a staff report from Mr. Driscoll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Give me just a moment while I share my screen. Okay, this is the Sandbox VR project for a land use permit located at 6,000 Bollinger Canyon Road, Suite 2401 on the second floor of the City Center development. The general plan designation is mixed use city center. Zoning district is city center mixed use, or CCMU. The property has about 325,000 square feet of floor area and about 1,300 parking spaces on site. So the proposed project would establish a commercial recreation facility indoor land use for the Sandbox VR business within an existing 6,038 square foot tenant space. It would provide a virtual reality gaming experience for up to 24 players at one time. There'd be 4 experienced play areas with 5 virtual reality games. It'd also be a guided experience for up to 12 employees on site, and the average player would spend about 1 hour on site for an experience. The hours of operation would be Monday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Sundays from 11 to 9 p.m. This slide shows the floor plan for the proposed use on the left with the virtual experience play areas, 4 of them, and there's also a lobby and some restrooms. On the right shows an elevation kind of view of the experience play areas. So the zoning ordinance requires a use permit for the proposed use in the CCMU zoning district. The zoning ordinance also establishes some special use regulations in zoning section D4-30 for commercial entertainment facilities. The stated intent for this type of use is that it's to control the location and hours of operation for game centers related to limiting school children from playing games during school hours and limiting minors from congregating in areas close to business selling alcohol. The zoning administrators determined that there's limited applicability with the proposed Sandbox VR operation in this zoning section because the proposed operation would not be limited to children. It would be for all ages from 12 and up with a height requirement. It would be a supervised virtual reality game operation as opposed to unsupervised arcade game operation. As I mentioned, there's a limited time frame, about 1 hour on site for the players, as opposed to unlimited time frame for arcade games. And there would be no late operation past 9 p.m. The zoning ordinance also has a parking requirement. It requires 30 parking spaces for the proposed use in tenant space. That's 6 more spaces above the typical required parking for a retail complex shopping center rate. The city center development will continue to exceed the required parking with the existing uses in proposed land use. There's a parking study for the city center development that determined that the existing facility has an excess of 82 parking spaces on site, which is well above the 6 additional spaces beyond the retail complex shopping center rate for the tenant space. Should also mention too, there's conditions of approval that require active management of the facility for parking with adjacent underutilized parking sites. So staff recommends that the commission open the public hearing, take public testimony, close the public hearing, discuss and deliberate, and adopt resolution 04-21 approving the proposed use permit with the draft conditions of approval. And if it's adopted, the applicant can submit for all the necessary permits after the effective date if no appeal is submitted. So that completes my presentation. We do have the representative from Sandbox VR will have a brief presentation with a little more detail on the operation, and we can take questions too.
Ryan, would you like me to promote the applicant?
Yeah, can you please promote Tommy Coe and Jesslyn?
Sure.
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment while I get the other presentation.
Okay. They should both, did they both pop up there? Yes.
Okay, just a moment while I get the presentation up for Tommy. All right, there you go, Tommy.
Oh, he's still muted, it looks like.
Oh, sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm Tommy from Sandbox VR. So Ryan, thank you for that introduction. So at Sandbox VR, we are a virtual reality company that sells full immersive experiences. Our mission at Sandbox is to transport you into another world. Ryan, if you can scroll down a little bit. Transfer you into another world. It's the closest thing to a holodeck that exists. We combine motion capture cameras with the latest VR hardware to create the best VR experience in the planet. It's very different than anything that you guys have tried at home and at any other place. It's a really hard challenge to explain. You really have to experience it for yourself to see what this is all about. As Ryan said, we do have 5 different experiences. So anytime a guest does book online, they can choose the Star Trek experience, the Amber Sky, Deadwood Mansion, Curse of Davy Jones, and then also the UFL. Ryan, if you can move on to the next slide. So as Ryan said, our experiences generally last for about an hour. It's after a guest arrives, it's 15 minutes of training and setup, 30 minutes in the actual VR experience. Another 15 minutes, it's during a post-booking review, their experience with the cinema video highlights with their team as the stars. We actually have the ability to turn our guest into a motion picture, and it almost turns to like a trailer, and they're actually part of the experience that they just experienced. Our ticket prices from Monday to Friday are range from $40 to $48. And then on the weekends, Fridays through Sunday, it's $51 per guest. All experiences or reservations booked through our website. We're generally sold out for up to 2 weeks before you can actually have one of our experiences at Sandbox. We recommend that the guests are at least 4 foot 2 inches and be able to wear 20 pounds of gear for 25 minutes for our experiences. That's a picture of 4 guests inside one of our experiences. You can tell that play area that Ryan was referring to, we actually refer to as a holodeck. So once you're inside, there is it's a pretty amazing experience. So Sandbox Views and props. So these are the things that we do have in our space. The backpack is a laptop that the guests will carry on their backs. The headphones will allow our guests to hear and speak to each other during the experience. The headsets allow our guests to virtually see each other in the virtual world. And the haptic vest is what we use for our guests to be able to feel the different experiences during the game. It also allows you to feel vibrations from getting attacked or hit in the game. Our claim to fame is you can actually high-five each other in the virtual world when you're in one of our experiences. Whether it's an impromptu gathering or a planned celebration for team building, Sandbox appeals to those who are looking to enjoy an immersive experience with friends, families, and coworkers in groups of 2 to 6. Our guests are skilled younger millennials, Gen Z, and the overall social media-driven crowd in the age group of 22 to 40. The median income of our guests are roughly 75,000 plus. The daytime population of 150K within 5 miles, and overall population of 250,000 within 5 miles of one of our locations.
All right. I believe that's the end of the presentation. Correct, Tommy?
Yes.
All right. We'll turn it back over to the commission.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the organization that needs to speak? No. Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so at this time, I would ask if the commissioners have clarifying questions for the applicant.
Well, I can't resist. Mr. Engen is sitting in here, and I just can't resist asking him how he likes the games.
Yes, Jerry is attending. If you could promote him, Jennifer.
Yes, he's in.
No, that's the real one, not a virtual one.
Right. Yeah. I haven't gone to one of their centers yet, but I'm actually really looking forward to it.
It's the space that they're looking at is on the Camino Ramon side of City Center, right above the empty space on the first floor.
Yes, right. On the second floor above that space. Correct.
Okay. So it's sort of on the side where Fieldworks is at one corner and the coffee place is at the other.
Yes.
Okay. I went over there this weekend, tried to figure out where it was, but I guess I was using the wrong map. But I was able to use Ryan's map today and figure it out. So anyway, well, thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah.
Anyone else have other questions? I have a couple, so I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask a question. So I have 2 questions. So in the course of these virtual reality experiences, is there some sort of rating for what the events? I know television, motion pictures, there is even in video games, there's a rating system. So is there a rating system for the experiences so that if this is for participants 12 and up, parents would know?
There is a brief trailer on our website before you do book an experience. It actually runs through the game, so you kind of you're informed of what you're signing up for before you actually make it to the space. But like the Curse of Davy Jones is the one we would suggest to the younger crowd. I mean, the other ones, Star Trek and Amber Sky, you're saving the world from aliens and things like that. So there is a little bit of there's that with that intro, you will be able to understand what that experience is about before you.
And so the second one, actually, I have 3 questions then. So if you are between 12 and 18, does that require a parental permission?
There is a waiver that everybody has to sign before the actual experience with all the VR gear and things like that, and the videos being taken. And a lot of times, if you've tried like Oculus glasses on before, you get a little bit seasick, believe it or not, even though there's no water around you.
No, I believe that. Okay. And then the final question I have is, are you recording this? How is the storage and safety of these things, the participants being recorded? How is that stored? And is there cybersecurity and, my 12-year-old being recorded doing this?
So we own all of our own servers, and everything is hosted in the cloud. It's shared with you, and you're the one that shares with the public. We don't actually share videos and footage of anything that we've created for our guests through social media or anything like that. So everything is driven by the guests and them sharing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. You can tell my former middle school stint is coming out. Any other questions clarifying before we proceed on into the public comment? I'm not seeing any hands come up from the commissioner. So at this time, we will open our public comment. Remember that during the public comment, it is for this specific agenda item at this time. So I believe we do have a hand up.
We do. It looks like we have one call-in user. There's no name attached to that besides call-in user. So I will go ahead and allow you to speak whenever you are ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Okay, so I think this is a very exciting opportunity for young kids, but I want to address some concerns as a parent, and I hope that my questions may be answered. I'm wondering if any of the games are sexual or gambling in nature. I'm also wondering if you are allowing guests as young as 18 and under, 12 and up. Are you going to require ID checking if they're not accompanied by parents? Some kids can look, old enough. I'm just a little bit concerned that they can get by without, proper waiver signing. You mentioned you have your own server. I'm wondering, do you mean that you rent somebody's server? Like it can be even located in China? Or do you mean that you actually have the server, like a physical server? If that's the case, are you a chain? Because servers are very expensive. So I'm a little bit dubious that you actually own your server. I'm also wondering, are these gamers' data going to be collected by you? And how do they register under your game? Do they use their real names, their phone number? How are you going to track them, so to speak? If they are repeating customer, do you have an account for them, or do they come in every time as a new registered player? I welcome your business, but please understand, as a parent, I'm very protective of my children's cyber security and cyber image, reputation, as well as their identity. So without the above questions being clarified, and perhaps we should be able to really understand what this is about. I'm very concerned that my kids may be jeopardized by visiting your business, or be too hooked up that if anything is gambling in nature, that it is very bad. It's habit forming. Then I would advise that you don't open it up to kids under a certain age. I think 12 is too young. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
all right, it looks like that was our last no. Someone's hand just went up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and call our next speaker. We have Suyash Goel.
Hi there. I just want to say, as the teen council liaison to the planning commission, I'm very excited to see this development continue. I feel like in the past, a lot of teens have felt like there's not a lot of fun experiences in San Ramon, but with city centers opening, a lot of teens have found new social areas to hang out. And and are excited to see new, VR experiences, new technological things, advancements. And I do have a concern with the timings. However, I feel like especially in the weekends, a lot of teens come to city center and other places trying to look for like sober activities to do, hang out, and having it close at 9 p.m. may be a little too early. And I think considering keeping it open till later time, like Fridays and Saturdays, could be a possibility to keep, to promote safe teen activities.
All right, was that all?
Thank you very much.
All
Appreciate
right,
your comments.
Thank you. All right, so Chair Kuznick, I don't see any other hands.
I will agree with you on that. And at this time, I will then close the public comment on this agenda item and ask the commissioners. Shall we hear from our commission and see where we are on this topic? Anyone would like to kick it off? Go ahead, Commissioner Marks. I'm watching the hands. I can do this.
I really have no comments. In fact, I'm very supportive of this. But I do feel that the first person who asked questions never got any answers. And I think it would be appropriate for the applicant to try to address at least some of the questions that the first speaker asked.
Okay. So would our applicant like to perhaps weigh in on the questions that were brought before us?
So the first thing is that I heard, there was a lot of questions there. So the first thing that I heard was, is there anything to do with gambling in any of our experiences? And the answer is absolutely not. I'm actually a father of 2 boys myself, and I take experiences a lot through a wide brand. San Ramon would be, the Bishop Ranch project would be our 12th project. We actually have locations all across the world. We're in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Macau. We're opening up in the UK and England. We have locations in the KSA, and we're a pretty big brand. We're not this is not our first Sandbox VR location in the Bay Area. We have another location in San Francisco and another one in San Mateo as well. And it's so we do have our own servers, and it's a pretty amazing experience. So you really have to experience it, and it's not something you're going to be hooked onto. And in terms of privacy, it's the email address that you provide us is where you're going to receive your videos and things like that, and that's how we identify a player if they've been here once or twice before. So it's really up to the parents' control or the participant themselves on where they would like that video sent. It's not something that is, we don't check IDs or anything like that and confirm that you are the exact person for that experience.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Other commissioners? Questions, discussion?
It looks like Corey has her.
I'm sorry, missed that one. Okay, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to just comment. I think that this is a very interesting use for the second floor retail space at Bishop Ranch. I think it's nice to find a project that is going to activate that second floor. I think it's going to drive some traffic to those upstairs restaurants, some of the upstairs businesses. I think it's going to be a solid project and a solid addition to City Center. Yeah, and I wanted to just reinforce that this is a third Bay Area location, which I think is fantastic. It is going to, I think, help to put San Ramon on the map.
Okay, Commissioner Albert.
Mr. Code, would you comment on the Teen Council representative, Mr. Goel's comment about the hours of operation on Friday and Saturday? And how's that compared to the hours of 9 o'clock on Friday, Saturday compared to your other locations? Did you consider staying open till 10 p.m. or anything on the weekends?
So right now we generally operate the same hours as the center hours would be. So if the center closes at 9 o'clock, we would close at 9 o'clock as well. It's just, it's even though everything is a guided experience, we generally like to abide by those rules. It's, if we were asked to stay to 10 o'clock at night, it wouldn't be a problem as long as everybody is agreeing with us in terms of security and how to get to the space from the parking lots and things like that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay. So at this time, is there a feeling on whether we want to create a motion for this particular agenda item?
Well, I would move that we consider resolution 04-21, and perhaps by going through the language of the resolution and conditions of approval.
Okay.
I'll
Is there
second.
okay, thank you. So we are considering the resolution for the Sandbox VR permit. Does anybody have any items on packet page 18? So we'll go through this. Okay. Seeing none, I'm turning the page. Packet page 19. Issues of the use permit. General plan designation. Hearing no objections. Packet page 20. Okay, land use for it in the mixed use, city center mixed use designation. Seeing no objections, hearing none, we get to page 21, packet page 21 on this particular resolution. So we are voting on this specific, just the resolution, and then we will get to the conditions of approval. Unless I stand corrected.
Through the chair, the motion should include the resolution and the attached conditions of approval. To clarify, Commissioner Wallace?
Yes, the conditions of approval are part of the resolution. They're incorporated by reference, so it'd be kind of odd to approve the resolution, not the conditions of approval.
Thank you so much. All right. Going to Exhibit A, the conditions of approval. Do we have any concerns? This is where they have the hours. I'm on packet page 22. Seeing no objections. Packet page 23. Okay. 24. I am to the end of those. So seeing no objections or amendments. Is that correct? So I believe we can call the vote.
All right. Debbie, I just want to double check. As we already had a mover and seconder, is that good for the entire item?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Commissioner Wallace clarified the motion did include the conditions of approval. So the
Perfect.
commission may now take the vote.
Okay. So we had mover Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
We have seconder Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
And Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Item 10.1 passes.
Excellent. Moving on to item 10.2, TTLC townhomes at 500 Deerwood. Staff reported by Shanae Tsukamoto, Associate Planner. I hope I said your name correctly.
Shinya Tsukamoto is my name. Thank
Okay,
you.
I will practice that.
Yeah. Good evening, Chair Kuznick and a member of the commissioners, and then also Commissioner Edwards. How did you? Nice to meet you. This is my first time before you. And I'd like to share the screen to give my PowerPoint presentation. Share. The project before you is proposed by TTLC for 57-unit townhome community at 500 Deerwood Road. Here is the vicinity map. This is the approximately 2.5 acre lot in the Salomon Village specific plan area, and surrounded by existing commercial building, storage building to the west, and then office building to the south, and other commercial buildings to the north. And this is the area view of the project site, showing the storage facility to the west, commercial building to the east. And this is a Deerwood Road that has a retaining wall built by the city. And also there's another retaining wall on the western side that is about 15 feet tall or so. And this retaining wall will be reconstructed, but the retaining wall on the Deerwood Road will remain as is. The proposed project consists of 6 buildings. 1, 2, 5, and 6 buildings are 3-story buildings, and 3 and 4 buildings in the middle are 4-story buildings. And this project generally meets all the development standards except 3 items that is addressed with the density bonus concession and the waivers. And since they're proposing to provide 3 units for very low income level, which is more than 5% of the proposed project, and then government state density bonus law allows the development to apply for a request for concession and the waivers. And in this case, a concession applies for some project standards that they could not work, but since they're providing very low income level, they are entitled to request a concession to deviate from the development standards. And also waivers apply to the effect of physically precluding the construction of the proposed project. So the one of the items is the building frontage width on Deerwood Road. And this elevation shows the Deerwood Road elevation. And then one of the development standards requires this frontage to be at least 75 to 90% covered with this building. But the proposed 2 buildings cover only 68%. So they are not meeting the minimum requirement there. Therefore, they are requesting a concession for this item. And the waiver on this Deerwood Road frontage is the requirement of creating a pedestrian amenity cutouts in front of those proposed buildings. But that is physically difficult to do because of the existing retaining wall. And that would have to be reconstructed and so forth to achieve this pedestrian amenity cutout. So that is one of the physical challenge on this property. And the third item is a retaining wall on the western property line. And if we require 4-foot retaining wall to be staggered, and it will take about 4-foot retaining wall to cover the 15 feet tall elevation difference. So that once again becomes a physical challenge or constraint. And then it may appear as that if we enforce this zoning standard of 4 feet retaining wall, and then project may not make it. So therefore, this application of a waiver for retaining wall is appropriate. Now, proposed buildings are either 4-story or 3 stories of different color schemes. And the applicant will provide you with the additional PowerPoint presentation to give you more detailed description of the project. And here are the 3-story buildings and 4-story buildings. And here's the overall project site plan and the landscaping. It's conceptual level, but they'll be required to provide us the final design and final approval from the planning staff. And then also that this subject application has been brought before the Architectural Review Board for their comments, and the ARB provided some constructive comments to the applicant, and the applicant chose to make some changes to the site plan and the minor revisions to the architectural design, and then they will be able to tell you in detail on their presentation. So with that, staff's recommendation is to receive the staff report and the presentation by the applicant, open the public hearing and take public testimony, close the public hearing and consider the project, and adopt resolution number 0321 approving the proposed project.
Shinye, did you want me to go ahead and promote the applicant?
Yes, Kelly Buccina is the applicant. And if you have any questions to me, I'll be happy to answer, or if you want to wait until applicant presents, that'll be fine too. And if you don't have any questions, I'd like to have Kelly present her project. And I'd like to share the screen, which is this one. Kelly, are you there?
I am here. Thank you. I'm just getting
ready.
Here I am. Hello. Thank you, Shinye, and good evening to you all, Chair Kuznick and Planning Commissioners. My name is Kelly Buccina, and I represent the True Life Companies, and I'm pleased to present San Ramon Deerwood to you tonight. I'm gonna just go through my notes here. Can you go to the next slide, please, Shinye? Thank you. So here it is, the first site of your recently adopted San Ramon Village specific plan. Deerwood is a single parcel consisting of 2.46 acres located at 500 Deerwood Road. As noted in the aerial and as Shinye mentioned, we are adjacent to the extra space storage facility, the multi-use industrial building to the east. Across the street to the north, we have the office buildings, and the creek is to our south, and then additional office buildings as well. Thank you, Shinye. So here is the beginning of the transformation of the San Ramon Village. You are about to see all the efforts of your hard work visualized and come to life. Going through the standards of the site, here are some of the highlights. The proposed project kind of fits squarely in the middle of the density requirement. Requirement is 18 to 28 units to the acre. We are at 23.07. We are within the height max limits. We are below it. So I guess that should have been a little bit more clear, but we are below the max height limit, and I can get into more detail on that in the subsequent slides. We are within the setback requirements. I'd like to touch a little bit on Shinye's comment on the building frontage. We came to the decision to redesign our site based on feedback we received during the preliminary review back in 2019. We did a revision to our site layout to accommodate concerns that too many 4-story buildings on Deerwood Road might be overwhelming. And so as an alternative, we moved those to the interior of the site to kind of, recognize the feedback and understand where Planning Commission was coming from and implement that change. Adoption of this resulted in an overall superior site design, agreed with you, but it also made the project fall short on the building frontage requirement. So that is where we are asking for concession. And Shinye also mentioned the pedestrian amenity cutouts. As you can see, the change in grade and the existing retaining wall just made that an infeasible requirement. So we are seeking a waiver on that. The creek setback is 100 feet for structures. We're staying out of that area. We want to leave the creek and creatures in its natural state. So we are staying out of that area. Guest parking, we are in excess of the requirement. 1 space for each 5 would put us at 11.4. We are providing 13. Bicycle parking, 1 for every 10. We are providing, which would put us at 5.7. We are overparked for bicycles. There's 14 spaces, but we don't mind that because we want to encourage everyone to get on their bikes and ride around. Open space, 5,700 would have been the standard for the requirement. We are proposing 36,420. It's a constrained site. It's got a unique geometry, but we were able to tuck in several little opportunities for open space and amenities that I think are really special to this site. Next slide. Thank you. So here it is. This is a current view from the street looking west. The site is currently utilized by various commercial uses, including auto towing and landscape maintenance storage. As you can see, the parcel is supported by an outdated retaining wall constructed from guardrails. Thank you, Shinye. Next slide, please. So here's a proposed rendering of what it will look like from a similar angle. As Shinye mentioned, we are seeking a waiver for the step-up retaining wall. Going up 4 feet, going in 2, going up 4, going in 2, it just easily takes up so much developable space, and we're kind of just squeezing everything as best as we can. So in order to make this work and maximize the site, we are seeking a waiver for just a straight up wall, which is what is actually there right now. The proposed residential community is 6 buildings with 57 attached homes. 42 of them are 3-story and 15 of them are 4-story. Each home has an attached 2-car garage. 39 of them are tandem and 18 are your standard side-by-side garage units. Private and common open space comes to 36,000 square feet. So we got lots of room to work with on the open space. Next slide, please. So here's a site layout that Shinye shared with you before. This is the 3-story units. These are indicated kind of in that whitish off-white color. They have a maximum height of around 34 feet. They're along the perimeter, which is going to give an opportunity to provide amazing views of the hills. And each home will have 3 bedrooms or 2 to 3 bathrooms with attached 2-car garages, as I mentioned. They'll vary in square footages from 1,367 square feet to 1,869 square feet. The ADA units, there will be 6 of them provided, and those will be in buildings 2 and 5. So they will be in the 3-story buildings right there. And additionally, I'd like to mention that this site will have single family trash collection. Yay. So no unsightly dumpsters will be around the site. They'll each have their own trash bin and receptacle. Next slide. On to the 4 stories. Those are shown here in orange. They're just right here in the interior, as I mentioned earlier. Maximum height of about 44 feet. Maybe they'll have the potential for some views as well up there if they're a little bit taller. Each home has 3 bedrooms and 2 to 3 bathrooms, depending on the floor plan, and varying square footages from 1,367 to 1,971 square feet. Again, with attached 2-car garages, these will be tandems. Next slide, please. Thank you. TTLC believes that affordable housing enhances quality of life and improves economic outlook of its residents and revitalizes neighborhoods. So we proudly offer 9 affordable housing units as a critical component of the community. They will be offered throughout the site and will be the same as market-sized homes that will be available. Next slide, please. So here's just a rendering of the open paseo. I'm gonna I'm going to show you some other open space imagery in a little bit, but I just want to share this one with you just to give you an idea of the casual seating between the 3-story and 4-story building as you enter in from Deerwood Road. Some of the community benefits that will be enhanced by this site. These will be solar ready homes. There will be 192 trees added to this site. There will be drought tolerant landscape, pervious paving, water efficient fixtures. I know water is just in short supply, and so we will be doing our best to be cognizant of that. We will also be avoiding the riparian corridor to maintain its natural state. And again, trash bins will be in the garages, and EV charging stations will be in there as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's a lot to look at on here, and I'm going to try to hit on them in the best order that I can to make things as clear as possible to everybody. But I want to mention that, this is an SB 330 application. I know you guys are pretty well versed in it. I've attended several commission meetings where there's been discussions about it. So I know you're aware we're not bound by subjective standards, but in the interest of the project and in effort to be cooperative with the city and work in collaboration with the city, we attended the Architectural Review Board on July 8th for this project. And based on that meeting, we made the following adjustments. We added an entry monument and additional planting to create a clear sense of entry. Thank you, Shinye. Concrete stairs and handrail were added to enhance pedestrian connectivity. There was a reduction of paved seating area between buildings 5 and 6 up on the eastern portion. There's 5, yes, thank you, Shinye. The review board felt that the seating area was too large and it needed to be scaled down just a little bit. So it wasn't impeding too much into the building. So happy to make that accommodation. In addition, we made revisions to the balcony and patio materials and made some revisions to those items to accentuate building structures. I'd also like to mention as a side note that we will be offering a 12-foot public access easement to permit construction of a multi-use trail within the creek riparian zone if the city would so choose to utilize that opportunity. So that will be there. And then if you'd like to just see, aside, there's the mailbox and there's the bicycle parking, the guest parking, but I'd like to point out there's actually 4 separate areas that, owners can enjoy here. There's the casual seating area right at the front between buildings 2 and 3. There's the pedestrian area on the eastern portion that people can sit and enjoy the sweeping views. There's the Creekside open space and over next to the creek. And then finally, there's a central open space, and I'm going to provide some imagery on some of these just to kind of give you an idea of what it will look like. Next slide. So the Creekside open space, this will have, the concrete walk will come down to it from the east. From the west, we'll have the trail to seating. There'll be a fire bowl. There'll be some chairs. There's going to be a great opportunity for people to just kind of relax, meditate, congregate, whatever it is that they need to do. But it's kind of a nice option to just kind of get out there and enjoy the nature. Next slide, please. This is the central open space. This is located on the western portion of the site. It's going to have an outdoor fireplace, seating, light strings overhead. Just a great opportunity, again, for everyone to kind of come together and have a real sense of place and community. So that being said, that completes my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, are there questions for our applicant before we move on? Clarifying questions either for staff or applicant before we move on to public comment? Yes. Okay, I see 2 hands. Okay, so where'd you go, Corey? I thought you had your hand up. I was going to call on you first.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've got a couple of clarifying questions. Can you give a little bit of explanation about how stormwater is going to be dealt with on this site and whether it's going to be treated on site through bioswales and so forth. I'd like to better understand the situation with mass transit on Deerwood Road and how you're envisioning that. I'd like to find out what you considered in terms of park amenities for children in particular on this site. 3-bedroom homes appear to be family friendly, but you don't seem to have any family friendly amenities. And I'd like to better understand the plan for this 15-foot high retaining wall. It seems to me that that could easily present a health and safety risk if it's not properly engineered and isn't properly compacted and handled. So I'm concerned about the existing site, particularly with that retaining wall on Deerwood Road that's going to remain in place.
Great, thank you. All great questions. I'm going to answer the ones that I can, and then I'm going to defer to our consultants who are also on this call to fill in any that I might not be able to answer. In regards to mass transit, we will be participating in the TDM transportation plan. So we will be implementing that policy and encouraging public transit and making property owners aware of opportunities in the area. Park amenities, I do not see that we have anything in terms of a swing set. That is a good question, and unfortunately we don't have that in there. The closest park is up the road, so I guess that would be the other alternative. I don't have an answer for you on the park amenities, but that is a great comment. The retaining wall, that is going to be constructed. I mean, if you saw it now, it's something to see. It's a real sight. We have soils consultants that analyze the soil. We have retaining wall engineers that do the design. So we will have the utmost confidence in the safety and the security of that wall before anything would be constructed on top of it. So there's a lot of consultants, a lot of hands involved in this process, but they will absolutely be making sure to ensure the safety and the security of that wall. In terms of C3, can we please promote or add Chris Gunther? I'm going to pass the baton to him with McKay and Somps.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
He should be joining in just a moment.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you guys for adding me in here. So C3 is addressed, and we worked hard with city staff to make sure that it was meeting all the requirements of the county and the city when we designed that. So we actually have an underground treatment system that holds the water, and then it's slowly metered out into a bioretention cell. And that bioretention cell treats the water, and then it's deposited back into the city's storm grid system. So that's all addressed, and it meets C3 and all those requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Wallace, you have questions?
I had a couple questions. Question one, where are you putting the view fence?
Sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear you.
Sure. Your specs call for a view fence, which is basically a iron fence, and I couldn't figure out from your site plan exactly where you were putting it, although it seemed to be going on top of the 15-foot retaining wall on the area facing the warehouses on the east side of the property.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
The fence would go on top of the retaining wall.
Okay, is that the only place it's going?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Next question, actually it's two. I can sort of understand the fireplace in the middle of the development. It doesn't seem to me that might be too bad of a problem, but I have a real hard time accepting the idea of a fire pit next to the creek. As you know, it doesn't take very much to start a fire in California. And I just find the idea of a fire pit that close to the creek and with all that vegetation to be, let's put it this way, not the best idea I've heard.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I would suggest, considering taking that out, putting whatever you want in there, but no flames.
Yeah.
Next question. The staff report noted that in order to develop the retaining wall, so it would actually hold up the property, you need easement from the adjoining property owners so that you can actually store your equipment, do your digging and all that sort of stuff. Do you have such an agreement in place?
Not at this time.
Okay. Have there been any discussions about that?
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm taking it from your comments that means there's been no definitive no answer, but you haven't reached an agreement yet.
Correct.
All right, next question. You have one building that is facing the storage facility, which would be on the west side of the property. I tried to measure the distance between the building and the storage facility. It looked to me that it was about 30 feet. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the distance is? Because I think that the storage facility is built right on the property line. That's what it seemed to be. So what is the setback from the building?
Setback from the building to, I don't have that in front of me. Let me see. I can try to find that for you. I don't have that off the top of my head.
All right. It looked to me about 30 feet, but I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
It looked to me from the drawings that there are stoops for two of the buildings, the 11 and 12 unit buildings, but there didn't seem to be stoops for the entrances to any of the other buildings. Did I misread your drawing?
Stoops on the 11 and 12 building. That is
Yeah, the
correct.
drawings, the elevations that I saw clearly showed stoops for the 11 and 12 unit buildings, which are in the center of the property, but I didn't see any stoops on the elevations for any of the other buildings. Now, maybe just because of the way it was depicted, but I wanted to know if there were stoops planned for any of the other buildings.
No, there are not stoops on any of the other buildings.
All right. Am I correct that the idea of permeable pavers, at least for the roadway, is off the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe it's going to have to come off the table. I was under the impression that fire, we consulted with fire and they were okay with it. But that may not be the case anymore. Are you talking about on the driveway on the loop?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If fire says it's a no, then it's a no. But I was under the impression that they were accepting of it. So it seems like there was a disconnect on that.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because as I read your drawings, and I'm just a simple lawyer, it seemed that a good portion of the driveway was supposed to be permeable. And then the staff report indicated that the fire district had a little problem with that. And it seemed like the only permeable substances were basically on the walkways and around the meeting areas. So I wonder if you could clarify about the roadway, because that's a substantial chunk of the property.
Well, I guess I need to clarify that. Are you talking about the grass blocks on the roadway?
Yeah. Well, there's several different types of permeable material that are listed. And one of them, I think, was what you just described. And I think that you originally intended that for a portion of the roadway where it sort of loops around.
Correct.
And that's what I said. That's off the table right now.
If fire is not okay with it, then it will have to come off the table. I was under the impression that they were accepting of it. Okay.
All right. It's a little different than what I understood, but okay.
Yeah.
So Lauren, do you want to weigh in on this? I saw your hand was up.
Thank you. I just wanted to make the distinction between turf block and pervious pavement. They are different things. They are both pervious, but they function differently in terms of their structural support and ability to support fire trucks. And so, again, the comment was related to turf block, and so an alternative can be proposed.
When you say an alternative can be proposed, you're talking about an alternative permeable substance?
No, an alternative to turf block. In terms of pervious pavement, has been used in other projects, and it's something that they'll work through at the design level in making sure that they continue to meet their C3 obligations.
Okay. Well, then it's not clear to me. Maybe you can answer the question. Is the roadway as currently proposed all impermeable substance right now?
No. The green portion of the roadway that's shown there is listed as turf block, and I don't recall if the balance of it is permeable. Shenya, do you remember?
Balance of it is impermeable, as I understand. Yeah.
That's what I understood. So what I was trying to get at is they had the permeable on part of the roadway. My understanding from reading the staff report is that the fire department wasn't willing to do that. And so I assume, that's why I was trying to clarification, is all the roadway going to be an impermeable surface?
It's
no, it doesn't have to be impermeable or permeable, as long as they look alike, look uniform. And some asphalt paving can be permeable or impermeable. So it's all the matter of calculating the C3 requirements. And then fire district didn't like the turf block being appears as different pavement material from asphalt pavement.
Right.
And the turf block also appears as, for certain people, undrivable surface.
Okay.
So that's why the fire district is suggesting to use the uniform surface, whether that is pervious asphalt or impervious asphalt. It doesn't matter. They can do whichever they need, so that this C3 requirements work.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I understood. I know this came up actually at another project where we were talking about a permeable substance versus an impermeable. And the problem was the permeable was about 3 times as expensive as the impermeable, and so it didn't work out from a cost standpoint. But obviously, I think we'd like to have the water circulating below as much as we could. But I guess you'll have to work that out on a different level. Question: the elevations you have certain colors for some of the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my question at this point is, it could be addressed to you or staff, is, are we supposed to be setting in place those colors now? Or is that something that we approve the design and then the color schemes come back at a later date for approval or comment at least?
I'm under impression that it's approved now, that those are the set colors.
Okay, I see Debbie's raising her head up and down instead of sideways. Okay. Okay. I think I went out and inspected the retaining wall along Deerwood Road, and I think I understand the problem of trying to do a cutout on that retaining wall. I don't see how it would work either, considering it's the city's wall. So,
yes.
Okay. I think at this point, that's all the questions I have.
Commissioner Marks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the speaker may have preempted some of what I was going to ask, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm going to ask a question that, if you've answered it, please let me know. The staff report states that the applicant has indicated that they will amend the site plan as recommended by the ARB with respect to potentially 7 recommendations. Now, you indicated at the entry to the project, you've already made changes, which we have not seen. And to me, that's a little bit of a problem. But primarily, I want to know, there were 7 comments that the ARB made relative to the site plan. Were all 7 of those comments addressed in the new plan that you talked about tonight?
There were several comments from the ARB. I don't know that we addressed all 7 of them in regards to the site plan. I think I had just 4 or 5 that I was listing on there, but let me go back to my notes so that I can be clear. Yeah, I think I did 1, 2, 3, there's 4. The entry monument, the additional planting, so maybe those are 2. I don't know how the ARB wrote it out. I don't have it right in front of me. The concrete stairs and the handrail. The reduction of paved seating between 5 and 6. And then there was some suggestions regarding the balconies and the patio regarding the updating and revising of the materials.
Has the staff seen the revised site plan?
Staff does have the revised site plan, and what I shared with you tonight that showed the monument, showed the pedestrian stairs, that is a revised site plan.
Okay, well, what you showed us was a plan view.
Correct.
It doesn't really show us any detail.
I understand. Yes, so staff does have that.
Okay.
Yes.
What is terra paved material? What does it consist of? Is it sort of like crushed granite?
Roman, sorry, can we bring Roman in here on this, please?
Anybody you want.
Thank you.
Hold on, let me go ahead and promote him real quick. All right. All right, he should be with us if he can hear us.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Roman DeSoto, R3 Studios, Landscape Architects. Yes, TerraPave is a product that actually comes from a company in Santa Rosa. It is a pervious material. It's very similar to decomposed granite, but it's tighter and essentially will not erode as decomposed granite may in a weather storm, rainfall, etc.
That is exactly my concern. Anytime I ever use crushed granite, or even in the city, if you take a look at the Iron Horse Trail, the rest stations that were created several years ago, the material is pretty much washed away. If you walk through some of our parks, you will find that where it was once crushed granite, it is now dirt with some rivets in it. And you're saying that this material lasts longer, especially at the end of a couple of winter seasons with actual rain?
That is correct. Let me restate that. It is not decomposed granite.
No, I realize that, but it's sort of like that.
It lasts much longer than decomposed granite would. It's got a binder that holds and creates essentially what appears to be a non-permeable surface. However, it is permeable per the manufacturer. It will last a lot longer than simple decomposed granite, even with a binder. So we've got it on several projects that we have in Santa Rosa, and we've gone through a couple of seasons of that. Not a lot of rainfall, obviously, but it's done quite well. And we certainly believe the manufacturer in their recommendation that it's a good product in addition to using decomposed granite.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I want to switch gears and go back to something I heard from Commissioner Wallace. I too have some concerns about the fire access or firefighting plan on TM09. And it's really twofold. I've never seen a plan that had as radical a curve in it and only one ingress and one egress to the project. In fact, I've had firefighters tell me backing a truck out, especially a fully loaded rig, depending on the size of the rig, is a real problem. I've never seen one that didn't have a hammerhead at the end of it if there was going to be a stubbed off area, so that backing movements could occur there. I know that we saw in the resolution, in the draft resolution, that the fire department has essentially blessed the project, but we didn't get the usual compliance letter that we get from the departments or the utility companies stating all of the concerns that are there. And so again, I have a concern about that. I'm not going to play firefighter, but it leads to my second question, and that is, what would be the problem with creating a second ingress and egress on Deerwood? The two entrances would be 180 feet apart. And so it's not like they are competing with each other or they're too close. Why is it not possible to have a second in and out?
I guess initially I would say that normally the standard is 100 units to are needed to increase the points of ingress and egress. But to that point, if you note the grade of the site, that one driveway is pretty much it to get on and off the site. There's not really anywhere else on Deerwood Road or anywhere else.
So it's the grade you think that,
Yes.
that is the problem?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Here's another question, a little different. There are 13 proposed guest parking stalls, but they're not delineated on the site plans. I don't know exactly where they are. Can somebody put one of your site plans up on the screen and walk us through where the 13 are?
Let me share the screen. This is a MT-09 fire access map that we see.
Yeah, do you have another, I mean, I guess I can do it on here. Do you want to?
Mr. Marks, what would you like to see?
I would like to see where the 13 guest parking stalls are.
Oh, here. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Thank you, Shanae.
So several of them appear to be parallel parking?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Shinye.
You're welcome.
I want to turn our attention to plan sheet A00-1. And I'm going to just take a second to get there myself. The sheet in the upper, well, not the upper, there's a site key that has a note that says parking stall count. And it says typical stall size 8.5 feet by 18 feet. If one takes the time to wend their way through the zoning ordinance, section D331, design and development standards, you ultimately get to table 3-10. And table 3-10 says that, well, right above that, I should say, it says residential development, all required residential parking spaces shall be standard vehicle spaces provided and maintained in compliance with table 310. And the same language is for non-residential. The stall depths are 19 feet. That's the standard in the city. Now, the plan itself says 8.5 by 18. And so I'm asking, what are the stall sizes, or why are the stall sizes below the standard in the city? And how is that justified?
Sorry, quick question. Turning to that.
If you don't have an answer tonight, I mean,
Yeah.
well, if we approve it tonight, we'll need an answer, but if this comes back, you could answer at that point. But it isn't
I guess I'd have
something.
to ask if there's a different standard for SRV specific plan. I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind.
No, there is not.
Yeah. So I'll have to look into that question. I don't have
Okay.
that answer right now.
Fair enough. Just a minute, I dropped a piece of paper here. Oh, okay. I wanted to turn to the, and this is just, I'm looking for a simple answer,
Okay.
yes or no.
Okay.
I'm looking at the consistency comparison on packet page 699, where the design guidelines that the city has are being answered by your company in column number 3.
Okay.
And when it comes to windows and snap-in vinyl mullions and material expected life, rather than saying yes and no as you do in everything else, which is very clear, you have a statement in each of them that reads, condition of approval number 17 requires consistency through the building permit review process. I don't know what that means. I would like to hear, is it a yes or is it a no? And I'd like to point out that it's not that the plans dictate whether or not you meet it, it's that the guidelines dictate what should be in the plans. So I'm asking, will the windows be at least 2 inches from the face of the building? Yes or no?
Sorry, ask the question again. I'm sorry about that. Will the windows
be inset at least 2 inches from the face of the building?
I don't have an answer to that. But I will say that the guidelines are kind of a subjective standard. So I have to say that those are not.
We had to fight to do objective standards. We are of the opinion these are so objective, the state couldn't possibly have any disagreement. Snap-in vinyl mullions between double pane glass is prohibited. Mullions must project away from window panes on both inside and outside the windows. You may not have an answer tonight, but at some point, I'm looking for a yes or a no.
Through the chair, maybe I can elaborate on that table. The level of detail with a development plan of this nature does not have specific details related to window offsets and the like. So the note refers to verification as part of the building permit process when we actually have construction details. Compliance with the objective standards will be and is a condition of approval. And so that's something that will be verified when we have construction documents.
Okay, so what you're saying, Lauren, is it will be a yes at some point in time, but at this is not the point in time where they would be able to say that.
Right. I mean, staff will be enforcing that standard as part of the conditions of approval.
That's fine. I was simply looking to see if we're going to get the yes at some point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes to your yes.
I want to then go over, there's a comment in the report that says that there is a condition of approval that specifically requires compliance with I think it said the AR guidelines. In general, what conditions of approval, when we get to the conditions, I'm going to ask you which one requires that you meet the design conditions that are in the staff report. This may be a little premature because we're not quite ready for the conditions.
So Commissioner Marks, are you talking about the Architectural Review Board or?
With the ARB and any other conditions.
Okay, thank you.
You need to bear in mind, and this is not a complaint, but this is just a fact. We got 700 pages of documents on Friday afternoon. And while I was willing to give you all of my Saturday and a good part of my Sunday, I didn't have the chance to really, with a fine-tooth comb, go through a lot of this. So some of this may seem obvious to you, but
No, that's fine.
I want to turn to the consultant report on biological constraints assessments.
Okay.
I noticed in the conditions of approval that there isn't anything in there about biological conditions of approval written by this particular consultant. I want to turn people's attention to packet page 146. And I want to read something very quickly. And I'm under the section called Special Status Wildlife Species. Toward the end, it reads as follows. However, given the project area's proximity to the intermittent stream, WRA recommends the installation of an exclusion fence along the southern border of the project area to ensure that species status, special status wildlife species are not affected by project activities. If the intermittent stream or adjacent riparian habitat were impacted by the project, consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife would be warranted. It seems to me that should be a condition of approval that gets added to this overall set of conditions. It may not happen, but if it does, there needs to be a remedy that the contractor on site knows about. Secondly, below that, under nesting birds, there's some language where WRA recommends that any tree removal, trimming, and/or other vegetation removal should be conducted between September 1 and January 31st, outside of the nesting bird season. If such work must occur during the nesting season, it's recommended that a nesting bird survey be conducted by a qualified wildlife biologist no more than 14 days prior to the start of these activities. If active nests are identified, a no disturbance buffer should be implemented around each nest to avoid impacts to nesting birds. That seems to me that it ought to be a condition of approval. On packet page 147, under the section on the page before it entitled Summary and Recommendation, at the very top of packet page 6, and I won't read this, but at the very top, beginning with the words, if portions of the intermittent stream located below, therein is another, I think, condition of approval. And lastly, I would say under trees, which is on packet page 147, it reads, if impacts to protected trees, e.g. removal or limbing that would be detrimental to tree health are anticipated, an arborist survey should be conducted by an ISA certified arborist to determine the number and location of protected trees potentially being impacted by the project. All protected trees determined to be impacted by the project would require the obtainment of a tree removal permit and compliance with all applicable measures of the city tree ordinance. The reason I asked for these, and in a discussion I had with Lauren earlier today, we talked about this a little bit, and I know Lauren had some questions of what I was looking at, but the reason I asked this is that if you've ever gone into a construction trailer during construction and talked to the foreman or the general, they don't have city tree ordinances with them. They don't have the city zoning ordinance with them. What they have, if they have all of what they should have, are the conditions of approval. And if it's on a list that's in front of them, they can see what they need to do, when they need to do it. And there's no dispute about what they are supposed to do. And so as a warning system to the contractors that will be on the project at some point, I think those conditions are important to include. At this point, I have some further comments, but at this point, Madam Chair, I think I'm finished. And thank you.
Okay.
And thank you to the applicant.
Thank you. So Lauren, did you want to, your hand was up. Did you want to speak to
I just
those?
wanted to clarify one aspect of the comments that Mr. Marks made regarding the technical memos. There is a condition in the packet that speaks to the memos and requiring the recommendations be incorporated into the project. But to Mr. Marks' point, they are not specific to each of those items, such as nesting birds or fencing. There's also a condition that relates to the mitigation measures associated with the original environmental document for the Crow Canyon specific plan as amended with the San Ramon Village specific plan. And so those mitigation measures as an umbrella are applicable. But like I said, from a technical standpoint, those recommendations are incorporated through that condition number 4 of the current packet, or 6 as the revised red line version. But again, they're not detailed out. So
and that's my concern, Lauren.
Yes.
That the people on site won't know specifically what they're supposed to do if and when certain things occur.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Alpert.
It's hard to believe I actually have one other comment or question, and then maybe it's really for Shinye or for Lauren. And it had to do, again, with the 100 Creek setback. The language that caught my eye was a portion of the internal driveway for achieving efficient circulation is going to be allowed inside the 100 Creek foot setback. And I recall a previous project which that was allowed, which triggered some significant discussion. And then also on page 147 of the consultant report, there was some language that said, if anything other than any activities within the 100-foot setback other than open space or recreation, then a variance approved by the city should be allowed. So I just wanted to call that out and just ensure that a variance has been granted, or it should be identified that we're going to allow efficient circulation within the 100-foot setback, or at least we're doing it consciously and we're not doing it accidentally. And that was my only real call out, because I just recall that allowing something other than recreation inside the 100 Creek setback generated some significant interest previously.
I can respond to it, or Shinye, either one of us, but I'll take the first shot at it. The reference or the prior issue that you raised regarding the application hinged on parking within the creek setback area, and that was ultimately discouraged. And so among the permitted uses are circulation as well as recreational type uses. So this is consistent with that policy interpretation and practice for the last 20 years or so. So there's no conflict or variance needed for this particular application.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
Okay. Having everyone else had their questions posed, you'll be pleased to know that I just have one small one. And really mine is about the Creekside area. And in looking at the plans, it does not appear that there is any lighting in that particular portion of the plans. And so, I kind of wondered why there was no lighting there, and would offer my concern that particularly up against a creek in the evening time and not having any kind of lighting, at least not that I could find, could be both a safety hazard and not a wise decision. So that I looked at that a couple of times on your lighting plan and could not see any lighting in that particular section of the property, and would encourage you to include your lighted bollards or just something.
Yeah, we will have a photometric analysis as part of a condition of approval. So we will definitely address that. I'm sure that will be covered, but I appreciate that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
And given Commissioner Edwards' comments about family friendly, maybe instead of the fire pit, we put in a swing set or slides or something for the kids, something to climb on. Less arson prone.
Yeah, got it.
Anyways, okay. So have we, yes, Commissioner Wallace, your hand comes up again.
Yeah,
Welcome
I
back.
actually never took it down.
That is correct.
I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask that came up during the course of the other questioning. The first question is this. All but one of the affordable units are placed in the two interior buildings. They're not spread out among the other buildings, and I wanted to know why.
A great question. In all honesty, there's a lot premium with the units along the perimeter, especially with the view, and those actually help offset the costs of the affordable units. So it's it's just purely a financial thing that we just have to utilize that to make the numbers work.
Okay, I suspected that, but I just wanted to hear it rather than speculating.
Okay.
The second thing is I wanted to follow up on a point that Commissioner Marks brought up, which I neglected to ask during my first go through, and that is the ARB had 7 recommendations on the site plan. They had other recommendations on the back of that packet page, but Commissioner Marks brought up the question about whether all of the ARB recommendations had been accepted. And as I understood your answer, it was no. And there were several that were, but one that stuck out to me that I think is a no, although it wasn't mentioned directly, was ARB had suggested an additional set of staircases along Deerwood Road to have pedestrian access to the property at the northeast corner of the project site. And it did not appear to me from the site plan that I looked at that it was accepted. So I would ask, since I suspect we'll be back here again, I would like to know specifically which of the site design recommendations ARB had suggested that the applicant had incorporated into its revised plans. And I would also ask for the same information regarding the 5 architectural design recommendations that appear on the backside, the 3rd page of the ARB resolution exhibit. I think it's Exhibit E.
So we did do an analysis of an extra set of stairs on the northeastern corner. That's a retaining wall. That's the city retaining wall. Yep. It's kind of cost prohibitive. It's as you've pointed out, it's a city wall. So that was ruled out as a yes, to be honest with you. As I mentioned, the entry monument was an architectural review board comment, additional planting to create sense of entry, the pedestrian connectivity with the concrete stairs over at the, I guess, next adjacent to the driveway was something that they asked for. The reduction of the paved seating between buildings 5 and 6 was something that they asked for. And further analysis of the balcony and patio materials was a recommendation of theirs that we took under consideration and made revisions to.
Okay, I think that's on the architectural design features. So I appreciate your oral recitation, but it would help me, since I'm a visual learner, just to put it in writing, which ones you accepted, which ones you didn't. It would make the next questioning a lot easier for both of us.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Marks.
The reason I put my hand up is I was going to make some comments like Eric just did. I think the commission needs to see a revised site plan that has all of these things. It's one thing to know that you've done this. It's another to be able to see what it is you actually did. And to that end, going back to the entry, one of the things I failed to say when I was speaking before was, I think the monument sign is fine, but I'd like to see special entry paving that distinguishes the entry from the public road. And I'd like to see what the landscape is around the monument sign and in that area. So when you come in with a site plan, that would be something that I would be looking for.
Is that an objective standard? I just have to ask. I appreciate the feedback, and I did receive comments along those lines from architectural review, but it feels like that's a subjective ask there.
Well, I will leave that to staff whether they think it's subjective or not. I don't think so. I think that it's pretty clear that, first of all, I think that no planning commission can do its work on the basis of somebody telling them what's on a site plan. They need to see the actual site plan. Same thing with guest parking, showing me that, yeah, you have 9 stalls, but never delineating where they are doesn't give me a sense that I really know much about it. So I'm really just trying to get to the point where I understand the project better, and maybe add a couple of items that I think are distinguishing the entrance for people that are coming there for the first time. it's probably not a huge point, and I don't want to come off as being against the project. I intend to vote for this, but I want to be able to vote for it on the basis that I think it's a well-done project, not something that was talked about, but I really didn't see what the final outcome was going to look at.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Staff has the updated set. They got it last week. So I don't know what the reason was for not passing that along to you, but it's in their care. So it's ready for your review.
And if it has all of what I've just said, it should be a slam dunk.
Thank you.
Debbie, did you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you so much. I know there were some questions regarding the type of pavers or surface that the fire district would accept. Roy Wendell is actually in the attendee, so if you'd like, we can promote him to answer the questions.
Okay. Where'd Jen go? Are we?
Yep, he's promoted. He should be able to talk now.
There he comes. Takes a second to come over.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. I'm just hoping I can provide some clarification on some of those questions that were asked in regards to fire access. So the fire district is okay with pervious surface on the access as long as it supports the load requirements that we have of 75,000 pounds. And as long as that vehicle access is open to all in traffic circulation. I think the first plan came through and it had bollards on it. That wasn't going to work. I think the second plan came back with the pavers, with the grass pavers. That wasn't going to work because most people wouldn't drive on grass. We need that area to circulate for vehicle traffic in order for it to work, because as Commissioner Marks pointed out, there is no room for turnarounds. There are no turnarounds. But it will work as long as we can get that whole circular drive open and accessible. In regards to the question about a second access, the applicant was correct. That's not required on a multifamily development until we hit more than 100 units, which we don't have on this project. And then again, as I stated before, assuming that roadway is open, we can make all those turns work and that access will work. So I just wanted to clarify those questions.
Do you have any concerns about a fire pit or a fireplace outside?
Generally, no, we don't, as long as the area around it is either landscaped or hardscaped and it's not directly under a tree or a building structure. Because I am assuming it would be natural gas. Yes, then yes, no big concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Commissioner Marks, any? Have we?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So
at
not
this
not
time,
to interrupt, but this is Chris Gebler. It took me a while to find it, but Commissioner Wallace had a question about the parking sizes. And so I did have a chance to go back and look at the code section you referenced, as well as our plans. And if you look at the plan view on 10 to map sheet 4, you can see we do dimension all the perpendicular stalls at 9 by 19 and the parallel stalls at 9 by 23. Unfortunately, in the table, there was an errant note that did not get changed that referenced the parallel stalls at 8 by 20. And so all the stalls will be constructed to City of San Ramon standards.
And that was on plan sheet TM04?
That was on TM04. And so the plan view is correct, where you see the 23-foot distance on the parallel stalls. The table was incorrect.
I see it. Do you see it, Commissioner Marks?
I don't
It's-
want to
it
hold
would be
things
like
up.
that.
I don't want to hold things up. We can proceed.
Thank you. Okay. So at this time, we have hit almost 9 p.m., but we are also going to move to public comment. So I think what I would like to do, is what appears at this point, is we have one hand for public comment. So I'd like to open public comment. And I know that we have received one written comment. So Jennifer.
Yes. So we received one written communication from Adik Mardirojan. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly. However, this comment was opposing the project, citing concerns with increased traffic and potential accidents, pollution and congestion. And this comment was provided to the Planning Commission prior to tonight's meeting.
Correct.
And as a reminder for anyone in the public who is viewing this, who would like to speak, you can click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 if you are calling in, if you'd like to speak when public comment is being taken. And at this time, members of the public can address the Planning Commission on item 10.2 TTLC Townhomes at 500 Deerwood. So I'll go ahead. We've had someone with their hand up for quite a bit now. It's the same call-in speaker that we had as before. Let me go ahead and just promote this person here. All right, so whenever you're ready, you're able to comment, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have any objection to this project. I know that Mr. Tsukamoto is very, very precise and meticulous. I just have a question, because I just read that Governor Newsom is going to now compulsory limit our water usage. And I think it's by city. So my concern is not just about this project, but all projects, that are in the works that will possibly, use up more water as our drought is very, very severe. I'm just wondering how that's going to impact our city and our residents. I'm not sure if that water is coming from our city budget, so to speak, as far as water resource go, or that the builders usually have their own allowance. So that's just my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we can go ahead and move on to our next speaker. We have Joyce Carr, whenever you're ready.
Hello again. When I had talked on 9.1, I had said that my opinions and my comments also would be when on the issue of 10.2, and it remains that regardless of the project and whether it's a good project or not a good project, we are in a water shortage crisis. And I please ask of you that you open your eyes to that and consider that when you're looking at this project as a whole. Because this water project is this water shortage that we have is going to be a huge problem with all the growth that's going in the city. Please, please, please consider this when you're talking about this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, it looks like we have another hand raised, and Jim Blickenstaff. You can speak whenever you're ready. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello again. I was kind of assessing the situation with this project. Originally thought it was kind of benign, but I see some details now that are not quite complete. And it seems like there's some open questions to be definitively answered before you can proceed with great confidence. For example, the retaining wall is going to add to the massing of those 3-story buildings on that edge of the project. And that's going to be a visual problem. It's almost, in some ways, when I see it, it's almost like adding another floor. So you need to consider the visual impacts of that large retaining wall as part of the visual compatibility of this project with the surrounding community. That still seems to be an open question. There will be children in this project, I'm guessing 20 to 30, maybe more, that'll be living in that area. And we need to address the issues around their recreational areas that relate to the project. The more they have to travel, the more unsafe and the more problematic it is for the children. So I think that still needs to be addressed. Parking, I think it was something like 1 guest parking per 5 units. And I can see parking also complicating issues around the project in terms of how far do you have to walk from a parked car to get to a friend's house. So I was wondering if that's possibly able to be addressed, or if it's kind of locked in granite by some state laws that are now bearing down on the city. I'm not sure how flexible there is in that. The creek infringement is always an issue, and it has to be an absolute necessity that preempts the protection of the creek, because that's taken priority in a number of cases. The most recent one I noticed was formerly the Crow Canyon Specific Plan, and the city abided by the creek protection corridor. And I'd like to not see that start to be infringed on again. And that needs to be clarified as far as opportunities there. I understand there's 3 ARB recommendations that were not fully answered or addressed by the applicant. So I think we need to clarify if those are still outstanding issues, and get all this stuff answered in a definitive way that's before the Planning Commission and the public, and then move forward with the project. So diligence at this stage will be very useful to make sure this is the best project we can have. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Chair Kuznick, I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. Looks like we've got everyone who wanted to speak.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so at this time, we will close public hearing on this topic. Now, it is 9 o'clock, and I know that we may or may not have more discussion. Do we, Commissioner Marks, you have your hand up?
I do, and I don't really have a comment, but
Okay.
I would like to ask the staff. It is my understanding that cities do not have the ability to deny a project on the basis of water availability. Am I correct about that? Could I get a yes or a no? Or...
Yeah.
Yes. Will serve is provided by East Bay Mud. And so once they've agreed to provide service, it's not within our discretion.
I think that's important for us to point out to the speakers who have talked about water. We do not have the ability under the law to say no on the basis of water. East Bay Mud, on the other hand, has the ability to make comments that we can't. And the same is the case with schools. And we've been over this before. We cannot deny a project on the basis of the impact to a public school. That's up to the school district to handle. When we are finished with this, I'm going to have some recommendations for staff reports regarding these issues. But I wanted, before the speakers hung up, I wanted to get those issues out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marks. I would also just chime in here that as I was listening, the idea of additional homes would require additional water. Presumably, all these folks are living somewhere and they're using water somewhere. We're just moving them to a different location. At least that's all right. So at this point, we have the opportunity to continue to have a discussion amongst ourselves and see where we are on this proposal. So commissioners, how do you feel on this one? And that's a wide open question. That's a terrible teaching question.
Well, it seems like the subtext to your question is, do we want to take a 5-minute break at 9 o'clock?
Do we want to take a 5-minute break first? Let's assign one definitive question. Okay, this is where you get to nod.
Okay,
Yeah.
5-minute
Yes.
break. It's up and down.
Okay, thank you so much. A little love from the audience here. So, all right, so we will take a 5-minute break and be back, and then our commissioners will be ready to go with a thorough and robust discussion of this topic. All right, so be back at 9:10. Thank you. Okay, it seems that we are almost all back. Not quite. All right, so the Planning Commission is now back in attendance, and we are resuming our discussion of item 10.2, the TTLC town home project, 500 Deerwood Road. So at this point, commissioners, your thoughts? And what step forward are you proposing?
Can I just hop into with a quick rebut? Is that okay?
I believe that would be all right.
Okay, great, thank you. Just want to
Debbie's
address a
shaking
couple
her
of
head,
these
yes.
comments that have been going around. I want to say that I understand Commissioner Mark's comments regarding the WRA report and agree that the environmental components would be appropriate as a condition of approval. So that way the construction crew has that in writing. Additionally, I failed to mention, and I'm sure you are aware, but in terms of the playground area, we will be paying a park and lieu fee, so that we will be making a contribution towards that fund, so that kids will have a larger, more robust area to kick a ball as opposed to what's available on this site, which is probably why it was not originally put on there. And then I would like to ask a question to staff. I would wonder if they could just provide some clarity regarding the Architectural Review Board report. And can you clarify for me if those all needed to be met or satisfied in order to proceed with this project? I guess I need some clarification and clarity on that, because I'm under the impression that commissioners may feel like all of those need to be met, and I was under the impression that they did not need to be met. And so I would appreciate if I could get a further understanding of that.
Yeah, I can weigh in on that. We opted to bring this application to the Architectural Review Board for feedback and advisory comments. The recommendations of the Architectural Review Board, while maybe helpful to make a better project, they're not binding. What is binding is the objective standards of the specific plan. And so the applicant may take the recommendations of the ARB under advisement and potentially improve their project through the implementation of those things, but they are not a condition of approval or binding on the project. Again, because they are subjective in nature, opinions of the Architectural Review Board as opposed to objective standards. And so, again, you know, a response from the applicant in terms of what they are implementing is helpful in understanding what the ultimate project will be. And I think that's to Mr. Marx's point about understanding what the final checklist of items that have been incorporated is. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I welcome further conversation and questions, and I would really appreciate a vote if that's possible tonight. Thank you.
So at this point, we have the opportunity to hear from each other and or offer a motion. Commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner Marks. You're muted. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
Again, I believe that overall this is a good project, and I don't think, given certain information, that I would have a problem recommending or voting to approve it. I don't think it's ready right now. I don't think any planning commission can say that they have done their job when they don't know what the site plan looks like. the site plan determines the functionality of a project. It is not a sort of a leftover kind of thing to be changed and then, you know, you're told what's in it. And I don't fault the applicant, I don't fault the staff. Maybe there wasn't time to distribute it, but right now, I don't feel like I really know what the site plan looks like with the changes that the applicant has incorporated. I also have some questions about, again, the conditions of approval that I talked about. I appreciate that they can be added in, but I'd like to see the language. And I'd like to see it in the next go round. I'd like the site plan to show me where the guest parking is. I don't want to have to interpret it. Those are functional kinds of things that we need to keep our eye on. I think we are well within our SB 330 time frame if we ask for one more review. It is not the commission that has held this up. We reviewed this in December of, I think, 2019. And this is the first time we've seen it since. And again, there could be lots of reasons why that happened, and they could all be legitimate reasons, but us asking for a second go at this, hopefully the final go, is not adding an undue burden in terms of time. So my recommendation tonight is that this matter come back to us with revised conditions, with a revised site plan. I agree with Lauren's statement that you are not bound to do everything that the ARB says. And I appreciate that you've done some. What we've done is tell you what we think. Ultimately, the site plan that you produce is the one we're going to vote on. And that will be the one that determines what the project will be like. But again, I think that we are in a position where we're not ready to vote. The last thing I would say that is really not relevant to your particular project, but in the past, we had a standard paragraph about schools. When these issues about school impacts came up, where we indicated who was responsible for deciding whether a project had an impact on a school, what the state law was that directed the city planning commission or precluded it from making any comments. And I think we need to reinstate that in every housing application staff report that we get. I also think we need one about water. The public often makes its judgment about what we are doing, not based on these staff these meetings, but rather they download the report and they read things and they wonder, why aren't we talking about water? Why aren't we talking about schools? And then we're in a defensive position where we have to try and tell them, well, we really can't do anything. Whereas if initially in the staff report, every time there's a housing discussion, we tell them, we can't decline a project on the basis of water or schools. I think it would go a long way toward improving the public sense that we are dealing with what we can deal with. So those are my comments, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to hear what the rest of the commission thinks.
Okay. Feel free. Okay, Commissioner Wallace.
Problem is the hand I have here is so dark, I'm not even sure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I
I'm
really
sorry.
wanted a light one like Commissioner Edwards has. I mean,
Yes.
that stands out. So
Apologize.
Okay, so I made a couple of comments about what I would like to see at the next meeting, and just to take the suspense out of this, I agree with Commissioner Marks that final vote, we're not ready for prime time on the final vote. This is the first hearing under SB 330. We have 5 in the city, reserving one for the city council. So I think it would be inopportune, shall we say, to vote on the first go around on a project that has over 700 pages of material, and a number of questions have been raised. So I made my comments about the fire pit. Someone suggested putting in some maybe some children's area instead of the fire pit. I would be supportive of that. Obviously, this is an infill development. You can't have a 2-acre park in an infill development like this, but I think we can do something better. I've talked about some of the ARB suggestions. I really would like to know which ones have been adopted and which ones haven't been, and the site plan will show some of it. But I asked at the beginning about the colors. And I was told that we're going to make a decision on the colors. So it's only fair to tell you what I think about the colors. I think that on a number of the front elevations, the colors are too damn dark. Okay. They are really too dark. And let me give you some examples so you can go back and look at them. On the 3-story unit building front elevation, that's sheet page A is an alpha 12. To me, it's a big enough building at 8 units, but with the darkness that's shown on there, I just think that the massing is even worse than it would be otherwise. Now, to contrast that, if you turn to page A21, which is a bigger building, 12 units, but if you look at the color schemes on that elevation, it's still the front elevation. The way the colors are, first of all, it breaks up the building into more separate units, at least to my visual acuity. And second of all, it doesn't look as massive and foreboding as the one where everything is dark. And it's really the lower levels, the slats across they go left to right. That's what's creating the problem for me on the front elevation on A12. It just looks like a cave. And I would suggest that someone play around with the colors to come up with a little bit lighter building, because that's what people are going to see when they come up or down Deerwood. And ARB actually talked about that, although they're a little ambiguous on their architectural design point 5. It says, look at an alternative color for the proposed garage doors to break up the monotony of the front elevation. That's a little unclear to me because the garage doors are on the rear elevation. So I'm not sure what they had in mind, but in terms of breaking up the monotony of the dark colors on the front elevation, I agree with that. And they did go on to say, leaving aside the garage doors for a moment, the board suggested a lighter color on the front elevation while toning down the side elevations. And I agree with that. I mean, you want people to look at this building and say, hey, they did a really good job on this. And when all you see is darkness, they'll think that someone's like me, they're colorblind, and they just put in all these dark colors. So I would really strongly suggest you look at changing the color palette on the buildings, and particularly on the front elevations. I think the rear elevations are much better for what it's worth, but the front elevations, you don't want people to see that and the way the color scheme is. So those are my specific comments in addition to what I've already made. But as I said, I'm going to make a motion, if no one else does, to continue the hearing to another date. So some of the questions that were raised by the commissioners can be answered, and maybe hopefully at that time we'll be able to do a yay or nay vote on the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a quick question to Mr. Barr. How many hearings have been conducted thus far under the SB 330?
This is the second one. The Architectural Review Board counts as an official meeting under SB 330. So we used one of the meetings there. We used our second one tonight. We saved one for commission, for in the event of an appeal to City Council. And so the commission has 2 meetings left in their maximum allowance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Albert, any
So
final thoughts?
And I'll just concur with Commissioner Marks and Wallace that, I think we all appreciate SB 330 and that, and like the other commissioners, we will approve this ultimately. But I think asking for complete plans that we understand is not the same as, slowing down the project. And just based on the number of questions and fully understanding and clarifying objective design standards, I think we all fully understand, that, what we're asking for may or may not be accepted, by the applicant. So I think we understand that. And I think even attempting to meet some of our subjective requests, and we understand that and appreciate that. And like Commissioner Wallace, I also listen to the ARB suggestions, and they are really good architects, and they really do have the city of San Ramon, the residents, the application, and the project's best interests. They make really good suggestions. So we do appreciate all that you do to kind of accommodate. And most of their suggestions are truly zero cost suggestions. Whether you buy a light color or a dark color, it doesn't make a lot of difference, but so we do appreciate it. And, I think we're all very mindful of how many hearings we get to do this before we have to make a decision. So thank you, and look forward to having you back here in the not too distant future.
And I would just weigh in and just, I think it's important to note that during this discussion that we did not have any concerns, not that I recall anyways, on the 3 topics that you asked for, both concessions and waivers. And so, I think that there's a pretty good feeling that, the project has a lot of merit, and we're going to work out some of the smaller points. But again, to Commissioner Mark's point, it was a daunting task to try to, give this a thorough reading, and I, it is what it is. And so at this point, then, barring additional comments from either Commissioner Wallace or Commissioner Edwards, I think there's an opportunity for us to make a motion of how we wish to go forward. Or not, I lost Commissioner Wallace. Okay. Ms. Farr.
Still here.
There.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion, but before I make the motion, I'd like to have staff indicate what they think an appropriate continuance date would be.
Okay.
Thank you. So September 7th would be appropriate, and the public hearing should remain open. So the motion should contain leaving the public hearing open and continuing to September 7th.
Okay, I'm going to try and rephrase what Ms. Chamberlain said. I would move to keep the public hearing open and continue the hearing to September 7th, 2021.
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. So we have our mover, Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
Our seconder is Vice Chair Alpert.
Aye.
Commissioner Edwards.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
And Chair Kuznick.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 10.2 is continued to the September 7th meeting as an open public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we move on to item 11, non-public hearing action items. There are none. Agenda item 12, study session commissioner liaison reports. Are there liaison reports from our fellow commissioners?
No.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wallace.
Okay, so I attended the Open Space Committee meeting on August 9th. First of all, they had election of new officers, which amazingly enough were the same as the old officers. I guess the memo didn't come down about rotating people. We had a presentation by staff on the ever interesting topic of flood insurance in San Ramon, covering all of 62 properties in San Ramon, basically focused in the Sunny Glen area and on the San Ramon golf course. So we had a dissertation on flood insurance from staff. One of the priorities of the Open Space Committee is going to update the open space priority map. When the Open Space Committee was originally formed about a dozen years ago, they spent several years combing through spaces in and around San Ramon to come up with a list of properties they thought should be prioritized in terms of conservation easements and the like. But the map really hasn't been touched in about at least 5 or 6 years, other than to have conversations with some of the property owners. So with the anticipated influx of some money for open space development, some of which will come from FREA, they're looking to update that and sort of prioritize what makes sense for San Ramon, given the amount of money we'll have available. The last item is a little bit more fun. As maybe some of you know, the County Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 to approve the Tassajara Parks development out in Tassajara Valley. I think the number of units they approved was about 135. It required an extension or a movement of the urban limit line in Contra Costa County. The flip side was the developer was going to grant 700 plus acres to the East Bay Regional Park District to be permanently preserved as open space. Well, lo and behold, 2 lawsuits were filed. One of by East Bay Mud saying they can't develop because we're not going to give them the water, which I guess is apropos of our discussion tonight. And the second one is even more interesting because the Sierra Club and Greenbelt Alliance are plaintiffs in one case. And who lined up on the other side in favor of the development? Save Mount Diablo. Wow. So we have this culture war between some of the environmental groups over to whether to allow this development to go forward. So it's in court right now, and I'm sure that you realize that that will take several years unless they settle it sooner than that. But I just found it kind of interesting to have the environmentalists on both sides of the lawsuit at the same time. So anyway, that's my report in open space in all its glory.
Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead,
I did.
Commissioner Albert.
So I attended the Architecture Review Board meeting last week, and they had 2 discussions, one of which was El Nido House. And as you all recall, we saw a concept review not too long ago about a residential care facility project. So they are coming back again, and he presented similar to what we saw last time, a residential care facility, and it will include the Nido House once again, moved to the front of the property. That will be the dining hall and kitchen, and then residential housing units as part of the project. And so the architects had a pretty robust discussion of the architecture and the landscape, as always. And then the second one was some pre-approved ADU designs. The city is pursuing using some grant money to come up with some pre-approved designs that will streamline the process of designing ADUs if you're so inclined. So I would suggest if that's in your future, just wait until they're available because it'll streamline significantly the process for getting one approved. And they're a couple of sizes and a couple of architectural styles, Mediterranean, Craftsman, and Suburban Ranch, and then all similar floor plans. So I had to leave before they finished the discussion, but they really dug into trying to make those streamlined. So once they're completely done, it becomes a very easy process to get those permitted and approved. So, you know, trying to encourage the approval and building of ADUs to help facilitate getting additional ADUs built across the city. And that was the ARB from last week.
Excellent. And I would be attending the Transportation Committee, but it's on Thursday and the meeting got canceled. So no information from the Transportation Advisory Committee. Anybody else? No? Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you. And so now we turn to Lauren for updates to the commission.
Pretty straightforward at this point. We have 2 continued items from tonight to September 7th. So we'll be looking at the BR6 City Village project as well as the continuation of the 500 Deerwood after Labor Day. And then we'll be moving into additional hearings in the fall for various topics, including general plan as well as BR6 as additional hearings as needed. So for right now, we'll just we'll lock in the 7th, and the rest we'll keep you briefed on.
Great. All right. So barring any other items for the yes, Commissioner Marks.
I wondered if I could ask Debbie a question.
Sure.
Debbie, is there anything you can tell us about the lawsuit that was filed regarding the Costco gas station?
No, I cannot. That's any litigation, and it's not on tonight's agenda.
I'm sorry, you didn't come.
It's pending litigation and it's on tonight's agenda, so no, you can't discuss it. I don't
Okay.
have information to share.
Okay.
All right. All right, so at this point then, barring no other items, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:36.